I'd also like to welcome Ellen back to Rotary. I remember when she was in the Front Royal Club, and I remember when we were out in Linden doing a makeup, and Michael Williams reminded us that all of us in the Front Royal Club were stuffy old men.
I'm not worthy. The finest in general.
Fortunately, Michael's not here today, but so it's my pleasure to introduce your program today. We have been working for quite a few years to try to get a CASA program here in Warren County. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. And exactly what CASAs do I won't elaborate on, because that's why we have our speaker here today. But we now have one, and Pam Ryan deserves a great deal of the credit for helping us to make that happen. Pam is Executive Director of CASA Children's Intervention Services and oversees one of the largest CASA programs in the Commonwealth of Virginia, now encompassing Prince William, Fauquier, and Rappahannock and Warren counties. Prior to that, she had worked for Northern Virginia Family Services, first as a Director of Development and then a Director of Anti-Hunger Programs. And also a noteworthy is an alumni of Prince William's Leadership Program in 2014. Was a 2015 recipient of the Kathy Ellington Leadership Award from the Greater Prince William Food Council, which he's currently board president, and was recognized in Prince William Living magazines as one of their most influential women. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Pam and let her tell you all about CASA.
So first of all, good morning, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you to Judge Sharp for suggesting I come. As Judge Sharp said, I am the Executive Director of Court-Appointed Special Advocates Children's Intervention Services, which is the whole official name of my program. It was founded in Prince William County in 1993, and as one of over 900 and some CASA programs across the country. The program started in 1972 and was initiated by a judge out in Seattle named Judge Sukup, who was a juvenile and domestic relation court judge like Judge Sharp, and had discovered that he was having to make these really life-changing decisions on behalf of children, and a lot of times he felt that he really didn't have all the information he needed to make the most informed decision to achieve the best outcome for that child. So in his mind, seeing that the guardian ad litems and the attorneys and the social workers typically had huge caseloads and didn't have enough time necessarily to invest in each individual child, he came up with this concept of recruiting and training a corps of volunteers who he could then appoint and match with individual children. And that volunteer then would meet with that child every month, would meet with social workers, would meet with counselors, teachers, parents, foster parents. And then whenever there was a hearing before the court on behalf of this child, that advocate would prepare a report, submit it to the judge, and the judge would then be able to factor in all that additional information into making his ruling and his decisions on top of the information that he was gathering from other parties. So that was how the program started about 50 years ago. It has expanded, as I say, to about 975 programs across the country, and currently we have 27 of those programs in the Commonwealth. Right now, the program I oversee is the second largest in the state, and we served last year about 347 children who were referred to us through the courts. One thing about the CASA program, which makes it difficult, is that we're very tightly regulated. The majority of our funding comes through the Department of Criminal Justice Services and the Victims of Crime Act. And because of that, we're held to very tight ratios. We do have 9 staff members, 5 of them directly supervise the volunteer advocates. But each supervisor can supervise a maximum of 30 advocates, and each of the volunteer advocates can serve a maximum of 2 sibling groups. So, and we report quarterly, and if those ratios are out of whack, we hear about it. So we're constantly out in the community trying to recruit new volunteers. It is not your typical volunteer assignment. As I say, we spend about 40 hours in training with new advocates, going through a whole wide range of issues that they really need to understand in order to bring that to bear on the cases that they're assigned to. And because it is child abuse and neglect, it's very, very difficult. We have a kind of a very long screening process before people are even invited to attend a training program. There's a mandatory information session, which you may hear about in the community. Beth Waller has been a huge champion of the program and has offered us the space at Open House there on Main Street as well, where we initially held our information sessions, and also has given us complimentary space in her building on Cloud Street, which is where our Warren County office is located. But once folks go to the mandatory information sessions, before they even are given an application to apply, they're sort of assessed throughout that information session based on questions they ask, reactions to information that's presented, because it's a really difficult subject. If they are offered an in-person interview, one of the things that they do have to read is an actual affidavit of a case of abuse or neglect with names and everything redacted, and from a different jurisdiction, so there can't be any way to identify who the child or the family might be. And some of the advocates or the advocate trainees really don't even make it through the affidavit because of some of the information that's in there. It's very, very difficult to just read on paper, much less to interact with the child who had suffered from that abuse. So we are always looking for new advocates. We've had probably, I would say, more than a dozen information sessions out here in Warren County since we got going. But to back up to the program's history a little bit, as I say, in 1993, Prince William County brought the program to Manassas. That was where our home office is at the moment. And then in 2011, we started serving Fauquier County, 2012, Rappahannock, and then last summer, we were made aware of Department of Criminal Justice Services expansion grant. So we looked around and looked at the map that DCJS puts out, where you can see all the CASA programs throughout the Commonwealth. And as it turned out, one of our supervisors lives in Linden and felt there was a tremendous need out here for the program. So we wrote the expansion grant and found out in, I think it was August of last year, that we had been awarded funding to expand to Warren County. We were only one of 2 programs in the state who were awarded the expansion grant, so we were thrilled. Judge Sharp and the entire best practices court team could not have been more welcoming to the program, to the advocates, to the supervisors, to our community outreach folks. They have been so critical in getting the word out and being supportive. Deanna Cheatham, who's the Director of Social Services, is amazing, has embraced the program, as has her staff, and we've got really, really great, strong working relationships with them, which is really critical anytime you're working on behalf of kids. Everybody has a role and everyone has a lane, and it's important that we stick to ours. We're not DSS, we're not investigators. When our advocates go out to meet with the children, which they're obligated to do at least once a month, they're not talking to the children about the abuse that they suffered. They're checking in and saying, how's school going? What's your favorite subject? What do you like to have for lunch? Just to assess the overall state that child's in, given the crisis and the chaos in their lives. So we see, interestingly, that the types of abuse that these children are suffering has changed over time. I'm sure everybody has heard all about the opioid epidemic, and so a lot of the cases that we see now aren't traditional abuse, where most people think, oh, it's physical abuse or the child's being beaten. A lot of it is more neglect because of the inability of the parents to effectively parent because of their substance abuse issues. So we have a lot more children just suffering from abuse coming into care. In Prince William County, there's been a huge uptick in sexual abuse. Some of the most difficult cases, I mean, what do you say when someone sexually abuses and actually traffics a 3-month-old? It's pretty stunning. So we have everything you see on the news and on all those A&E shows with hoarding and all these other sort of addictions and outrageous behaviors. we see those cases. We just recently got a case in about child pornography that somebody had tipped off the FBI, and the FBI came into the community and met with DSS and went out to the home. And you know, when it's your birth parents who are actually involved in you know, taking those photos and uploading thousands and thousands online, I mean, it's really stunning. The same thing with hoarding. We've seen so many more cases of hoarding where the children aren't necessarily being mistreated. They're happy, they're healthy, they're going to school, they're getting good grades, but just because of the mental health issues of their parents, it's just not a safe environment. So abuse and neglect can run the gamut, all sorts of different issues in play. And what the CASA's real role is to go into the home and really get a sense of what's happening. You know, how are the family members interacting? And because CASA is not a government agency, we're not attorneys, the CASAs are volunteers. So there's a different sort of feel with how they interact with the families and the kids. All the folks they interact with tend to let their guard down a little more because they're not government agencies. And because CASA can go in there and visit more frequently than a lot of times the GAL can or the social workers can, we get our eyes on the kids much more frequently. It's a big difference when you're a volunteer advocate and you have one child or one sibling group to be worrying about every month, than if you're a social worker and you have a huge caseload. And a lot of times what happens, and it's not just Warren County, it's in all the counties, is there's such a finite number of foster parents that a lot of times when children are removed from their home, it's not like they're going to a foster home, you know, in the next town over or a 20-minute drive away. They can be sent to different placements throughout the state. So it becomes a real challenge if you're a social worker and you've got a huge caseload and now you have children placed all over the state that you need to go and check on and see how they're doing. So CASA can really help in that regard. The volunteers have more time to make those visits. So we really, really value our partnerships with the other stakeholders in the community who are working on the same issue, without everybody being collaborative and sharing information when and where it's appropriate. None of us can do the best job we can for the children. So I think one of the most exciting things for the program, as far as being in Warren County, is that Judge Sharp has a best practices court, which is the ultimate in collaboration, where every other month, everybody involved with these kids in the juvenile and domestic relations court system gather in Judge Sharp's courtroom just to go over how are things going, are there issues, are there challenges, what do we need to do as a group to improve the services we deliver to these kids to make sure they do get the best outcome. So it's been a real honor to be out there. And I don't know if anyone has any questions. I haven't gone into the structure and bureaucracy and all of that of the program, but